Okay, since the purpose of this class is actually to help you prepare to write papers for classes throughout your college career, I thought we'd take a little time to talk about how to write research-based term papers in a way that will help you avoid stress and turn out a better paper so that you earn a higher grade. First of all, expect to write more as you go through college, not less. You can expect to be assigned more papers as you go. You could very well find by the end of your college career, even as an undergraduate, that you have to write 5 or 6 papers in the same semester. It kind of depends on what you're majoring in, but in many cases that's true. So just be prepared for that, and I'm going to tell you how to survive it. Expect the papers that you have to write to be longer and more complex. Certainly the information will be more complex. There might be more complex requirements in terms of needing to use graphics or formulas depending on what your major is. There might be more complexity in terms of a number of aspects that your professor might expect. So just be prepared for that. You also can expect tougher grading. For one thing, as you move through your college career, your professors are going to expect definitely more sophisticated development in your papers, and they're definitely going to grade you tougher on that. And some professors, as you go, might be very, 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 very picky about documentation. They might have some particular aspect of grammar that they grade. Definitely, if you're majoring in something outside of the humanities, they will be tougher on things like the use of first or second person pronouns or contractions or informal language. If you're working outside the humanities, if you're majoring outside of the humanities, do not use phrases like I think, I believe, I feel, nothing like that. You'll just irritate your professors. And you can generally expect the papers to be due during the toughest time of the semester, which is the end of the semester. They might be due a couple of weeks before finals. They might be due during finals week. And you know how tough that period is. And if you haven't been in college a full semester yet, you're going to find out how tough it is. You'll have final exams to take. Some of them will be comprehensive. That takes a lot of studying. There might be last unit exams to take in those last couple of weeks. You might have projects other than papers due. You may well have work outside of college and family concerns. So you're going to have all of this stuff coming at you at the end of the semester. And then, of course, the end of the semester, if it's the first semester, you're coming up on the holidays, and that always requires a lot of extra work and stress. And if it's the spring semester, you're coming up on summer break, and you may need to be looking for a summer job, and that also takes time and causes stress. So those are just some of the things that you can expect to encounter. In order to survive this, you have to know what you can control and what you can't control. You can't control the number, timing, or content of the final exams that you might be faced with. That's entirely up to your profs. You can't control situations that you might encounter at work. That's generally up to your boss, or depending on the type of work you do, it might be a cyclical situation, particularly, for example, if you're working in retail. The weeks right before the holidays are really, really bad. You can't control anything about that. Obviously, you can't control that the holidays are coming up or that you need to look for a job, but you can control how you time working on research papers, particularly if they are assigned, as many of them are, they are assigned on the syllabus and the prof might not ever mention it again until the day they're due. So you have the entire semester to work on the paper, and you can control the timing in that. Take control of what you can. If you do, it's going to reduce your stress and it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. And if you don't, you're going to end up being really, really stressed at the end of the semester. Now, I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm telling you what I learned in my years as a student. As I said, most of what I teach in this class is stuff that I learned as a student. It's not stuff that I learned by being a graduate student or reading articles or studying textbooks. I know how tough being a student is. And so I want to make sure that you don't have to learn through trial and error like I did, and that you don't go through the stress that I went through and that some of your colleagues in school will go through. Keep in mind that timing is everything in writing a paper. First of all, good timing in working on a paper schedules the work over the entire semester. It gives you more time. It keeps you from having more than a day or two during which you have to sit and focus on writing that paper. Okay? It's going to reduce your stress, as I've already talked about. It's going to particularly reduce your stress at the end of the semester. And also, if you work on a paper as you go throughout the semester, it's going to really increase your confidence and reduce your stress overall, because you'll know that you're working on something really important in a class and that you have taken steps and made strides in many cases long before other students in the class have even thought about writing the paper. So it will help reduce your stress throughout the semester and particularly at the end. It will improve your access to help. Now, there are various types of help available on every college campus. And for all of them, and I know particularly for the reference librarians in the Writing Center, for example, those people are busiest at the end of the semester because most students don't do anything on their research paper until a week or maybe 2 weeks before a semester ends. Well, the various resources that a campus provides to help you, the reference librarians, the writing centers, tutoring centers, and so forth, they want to help you as much as they can. But if they've got 15 people waiting for their help, they can't give you as much time as they can if they don't have anyone but you waiting for help. So if you follow a schedule that I'm going to propose, you're going to find that you're going to be able to get help from those resources without waiting for it as long, and they're going to be able to spend more time helping you, which is going to help everything. It's going to impress your professor. As you'll notice, at least once in the process that I'm going to recommend, you're going to talk directly to your professor about your paper. And the fact that you're even thinking of it is going to impress the professor. And remember, the game you're playing as a student, of course, is impress the prof. That's what it's all about, right? And ultimately, along with all of this, you're going to reduce your stress. You're going to have more access to resources on campus that can help you. And in addition to all that, your paper is going to be better, and therefore your grade's going to be higher. You need to set a schedule for working on a paper. Use a planner to schedule your own intermediate deadlines. And you've already seen by working on the first paper what some of those deadlines need to be, and I'm going to go over them at the end of this presentation too, okay? In your planner, first of all, note the deadlines that your professor requires. There will, of course, be a deadline for when the paper is due. Your professor might have some other deadlines that he or she sets in terms of wanting you to submit what your topic is going to be. Some professors might want an annotated bibliography or various other types of work. Obviously, you want to notice what those deadlines are and put them in your schedule, and then rearrange the schedule that I'm going to recommend to make sure that you can meet those deadlines. Also, note the dates of other important events before you schedule your paper. If you know the dates of unit exams in your various classes, make a note of those on your planner. Note other important events that don't have anything to do with school. For example, if you or somebody in your family has a birthday and you know that that is going to take some time for celebration, or if you know that you might have friends coming in from out of town. Note important things like that so that you don't set your own intermediate deadlines for working on your paper in a way that will conflict with those. And then what you would do for any paper or for any major project is you determine the steps that you need to do to complete the project. You start from the due date, estimate how much time it's going to take to complete the various steps, and work backward from the due date. So look at the due date, determine the next to the last step that you have to take, and decide how much time that will need, and then mark a deadline as to when you need to have that step done. And do that all the way back to the date that you are currently facing, that you're currently living on, okay? Now, this is what's called project planning. Now, if you do this and you actually save your planners, not only will this help you write your papers, but one thing that a lot of employers look at is whether you have experience in project planning. And if you can prove to them that, look, I've been doing project planning throughout college, that will help indicate that you might be prepared to take on more responsibility and a slightly better job than people who can't demonstrate that they have experience in project planning. Okay, now with that in mind, let's look at the typical timing for a paper that is assigned on the syllabus the first week of the semester and is due at the end of the semester, say during finals week or the week before. During the first full month of the semester, whether it's September or February, choose your topic, conduct your initial research, and then clear the topic with the professor, because you want to make sure that what you're writing on is something that the professor agrees with. Now, if you go to your professor in mid or late September or February, and you talk to the professor about your topic for your paper at that point, the fact that you're even thinking about your paper at that point is going to is really going to impress the professor. Because believe me, we all know that a lot of people don't even think about it until, well, too late. Okay? Now, here's something I recommend, and this is kind of tricky. Okay, because it can kind of backfire on you, but I've had really, really good luck with it. When you go to clear the topic, before you even go decide on a topic, one thing that you can take into consideration is what your professor is interested in. Okay. Sometime before you decide on a topic, go to the professor's office during office hours about anything. just make up a question or whatever to ask the professor. You can even go and say that you're just looking and making sure you know where all your professor's offices are. What you're really there to do is look at the professor's bookcase. Because what you'll generally notice is that obviously your professor is going to have a lot of books on the discipline they teach. But they're probably going to have one area in particular that they're interested in and that they do a lot of research on. For example, if it's a psychology class, your psych prof might be particularly interested in mood disorders. And so in glancing at their bookshelf, you might see a lot of books on mood disorders or bipolar disorder or depression, things along those lines. Okay? Now, there's going to be another video on how to select a topic that also will apply to the second paper. But one factor that you can take into consideration in picking a topic, and I know this seems tricky and it almost seems like cheating, but really it's not. It's not really cheating because you're not forcing anybody to do anything. But here's what I've seen happen with profs. In fact, I've had profs do this for me more than once, and even in grad school. If you pick a topic that the professor is interested in, and you go to the professor, and let's, do the mood disorder thing, and after conducting your own initial research, you say, I'm thinking of writing on the treatments for bipolar disorder. And I just wanted to talk to you about the topic. Here's what the professor might do. He might scoot his chair, and of course it could be a woman, and I'm being sexist here, but let's just go with it, okay? And forgive me, I'm not trying to be sexist, okay? So the prof might scoot her chair right over to the bookcase and start pulling books off the bookcase and loaning them to you. Then he or she even might start pulling articles out of a desk drawer and loaning you those. Now, obviously, if the prof has given you the sources, they're sources the prof respects, so that's going to help you get a better grade to begin with. Also, the prof has just done about half your research for you. All you have to do is go through those sources and find what works for your paper. The prof has just saved you a lot of time and effort. Now, it doesn't always work, and I have had one student tell me that it can backfire if you don't go and work with the prof as you work on the paper, because the prof obviously knows a lot about the topic you're writing about. So you'd better make sure that you know what you're talking about in your paper before you turn it in if you write in a topic that is of special interest to the professor. But I have seen this happen time and again in my own life, where I go in and tell the professor that I'm working on a paper that I know the professor is interested in, and I leave the office with most of the sources I need. So it's just something that I've noticed, and you can give it a try and see if it helps you. Okay, so during the first month, you're going to choose your topic and conduct your initial research, and you're going to clear your topic with your professor. Then during the second full month of classes, which in a typical 2-semester college would be October or March, gather, study, and annotate all of your sources. Okay? And don't forget to work with the reference librarian. The reference librarian knows, well, what reference librarians don't know, they know how to find. And they can help you find really excellent sources that are at a level that you can work with and that are well respected. So don't forget to get to know and work with your reference librarian. The reference librarian is your friend. Could end up being one of the most supportive people and one of your best, work-type friends in your college career. So make sure you always treat that reference librarian with a lot of respect and show them a lot of gratitude, because they can really help you with your research. Okay, so in the first full month, September or February, you're going to choose your topic and conduct your initial research, clear your topic with your professor. Then in the second month, October or March, you're going to gather all your resources and all your sources, and you're going to go through and study them and annotate them. Okay? Then during the last full month, which would be November or April, you're going to draft and revise your paper. Now, I said there are only a couple of days when you might have to put in a lot of time on one day on the paper. One time will be when you go to the library and gather your sources, okay, during the second month. One time will be when you sit down and you write your first zero draft, which, as we learned in writing the first paper, is something you want to try to do at one sitting. Other than that, you can work on the revisions for a couple of hours at a time, spread out over that last month. Don't forget to take it to the campus writing center, and every college campus I'm aware of has some kind of a writing center. Don't forget to take it there or to work with the tutor. It's a good idea to have somebody who's in the class read over the paper too. Not for the grammar aspects or anything like that, but just to see if the student in the class thinks that the paper meets the requirements of the assignment. Most professors will be happy to go through a draft with you, because if they spend a little time in their office going over a draft, it's going to make grading the paper easier. And believe me, really, believe me, you are not writing research papers for the professor. Until you get to maybe your senior year, and maybe as a graduate student, you might actually be telling the professor something the professor doesn't already know. Before that, you won't be. And even if you're dealing with a topic that isn't something that the professor is the professor's primary area of interest, if they're teaching the class, they know more than you're probably going to put in a paper. You are not writing the paper for the professor. You're writing the paper for yourself. You're writing the paper to improve your education, because studies have shown that because of what is required to write a paper, because you have to gather the information and you have to organize it, that helps your brain recall it. And people learn more from writing research papers, and they remember what they learn in writing their research papers better than anything else in the class. So when a professor assigns a research paper to you, the professor is demonstrating that he or she really cares about your learning, because I can guarantee you they don't want to grade it. Grading papers is not fun. Okay? It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and when the papers are bad, it really makes you want to bang your head against the wall, because it really makes you wonder whether you manage to teach people anything, and whether all your effort and all your time and your entire life is just being wasted. So grading papers is not something that any professor looks forward to. So believe me, they're not assigning it for themselves. But if you take them drafts to read, they're really going to appreciate it, and they'll help you, and it will impress them that you have the paper pretty much done in, say, mid-November or April, and it's not due for like a month. Okay? And it will show that you care. And no matter how hard we try not to let those things influence us when we grade, it's very hard not to. Now, I grade a lot of papers, and I've learned little tricks, like not really looking at students' names before I grade the paper. But even at that, we go into grading with an attitude, whether we want to or whether we don't. And what you want is to turn in a paper that the professor is already expecting to earn an A before the professor ever looks at the paper. That really can work to your advantage Because if even subconsciously the professor is expecting an A paper, chances are that the professor is going to justify his or her own expectations. Okay? And we're playing an impress the prof game. And if you go to the professor in September or February with the topic, if even after class a time or two, during October or March, you mention something to the professor about the sources you're working with or ask for some help in finding sources. And then if you take the professor a draft in mid-November or April, the professor is involved in your paper. And the professor is going to want you to do well because the professor has been involved in the paper. And this isn't cheating. This is actually what research papers are meant to do. But most students don't take advantage of that. So if you follow this kind of scheduling and you work on a research paper in this way, I know, and I learned this from being a student. I learned it from screwing it up and being exhausted and not sleeping at all for like the last 2 or 3 weeks of a semester. And then over time, I learned how to avoid that. And if you do these things, your paper will be done before most students have even started on it. So you'll go into class, say, the first week of December or the first class period in May, and people will be going, "Oh, do you know what you're going to write your paper on yet? Oh, no, I haven't even thought about it. Your paper's done, man." And you can say, "Oh, mine's finished. In fact, the prof's already read a draft of it and thinks it's pretty good. Mine's all done, so all I have to do is turn it in." Duck, because they'll probably throw books at you, but that's going to be a really good feeling, and it's really going to reduce your stress as you come up on that final exam period. So this is pretty much information that I hope you can use as you go on through college. More than for this class, of course, because we don't have one paper that is stretched out over an entire semester. But my goal is for you to do very, very well on every paper you write in college. And for you to be able to do that while creating as little stress for yourself as possible. Because being a student isn't easy. And you have so much that you have to do, and you have so many competing aspects of life that are trying to take your time. And it's not all keg parties and road trips and good times like the movies want to make it look. It's a tough life. And I care about you. I care about you as a student because once you're one of my students, you're always my student. And I want you to do well. And that's what the purpose of this little video was for, was to help you get ready for writing papers in other classes and give you some ideas on how to approach that in a way that will both get you a better grade and make it a whole lot easier on you and reduce your stress. So I hope that you do find that following my advice helps you as you go on in college. Of course, if you have any questions about this, you know you're going to email me at deborah.okie@csn.edu. And you also know, of course, that you're going to email me from an account other than Canvas. I know you think I can stop saying that anytime now, but never hurts to repeat it. Okay, thanks a lot for watching this. You have a good day. Hope you have some time to enjoy yourself today.